Most videos throw random facts at you without context. This one doesn't. Every fact here has been picked for a reason, because it's real, rare, and worth knowing. No fake hype, no slow build-up. Just solid information you probably haven't heard before, delivered straight. If you're here to learn something that actually sticks, let's get right into it. A teaspoon of neutron star material weighs over 1 billion tons due to its extreme density. Neutron stars form from the collapsed cores of massive stars after a supernova. Their matter is so compressed that a single cubic centimeter can weigh about 400 million tons. This density results from atomic nuclei being packed tightly with neutrons under immense gravitational pressure. Glass is an amorphous solid, but it does not flow over centuries at room temperature. The common belief that medieval window panes are thicker at the bottom due to glass flowing over time is a myth. The uneven thickness is actually the result of historical glass-making methods, which produced glass with variable thickness that was often installed with the thicker side down for stability. In March 2000, an iceberg approximately the size of London broke off from the Antarctic ice shelf. This calving event occurred near the Ross Ice Shelf and was tracked by satellite imagery. Large icebergs like this can measure hundreds of kilometers in length and play a role in ocean circulation and sea level dynamics. Astronauts are unable to whistle inside spacesuits due to the low air pressure within the suit's internal environment. Whistling requires controlled airflow and pressure differences between the lungs, mouth, and lips. The pressurized atmosphere inside a spacesuit restricts this airflow, making whistling physically not impossible, but very difficult during extravehicular activity. Benin, a country located in West Africa, holds the world's highest rate of twin births. While the global average for twin births is approximately 1.3%, Benin's rate stands at roughly 3%. This unusually high rate is especially notable among the Yoruba ethnic group, where genetic factors and diet, particularly cassava, may contribute to the increased frequency of twin pregnancies. Around 41,000 years ago, during a geomagnetic reversal known as the Lachamp event, Earth experienced widespread auroras. The weakened magnetic field allowed solar particles to penetrate deeper into the atmosphere, producing visible auroras at low latitudes. These light displays, similar to the northern and southern lights, may have been seen globally. On Neptune and Uranus, high atmospheric pressure and temperatures cause carbon atoms to crystallize into diamonds. At depths of several thousand kilometers, methane breaks down, and carbon compresses into solid diamond structures, which may fall like rain through the ice giant's atmosphere. This phenomenon has been supported by laboratory simulations replicating planetary conditions. The Moon is gradually moving away from Earth at a rate of approximately 3.8 centimeters per year. This is due to tidal interactions between Earth and the Moon, which transfer angular momentum. Over geological time, this drift has influenced Earth's rotation and the length of a day. The effect is measured using lunar laser ranging experiments. The observable universe is estimated to contain about 100 to 200 billion galaxies. Each of these galaxies typically hosts hundreds of billions of stars. This estimate is based on data from space telescopes like Hubble and observations of deep space fields. The actual number may be higher as more faint and distant galaxies remain undetected. Peregrine falcons can reach diving speeds of up to 240 miles per hour while hunting. This makes them the fastest animals in the world. They achieve these speeds by tucking in their wings and entering a stoop, a high-speed controlled dive used to catch prey mid-air, primarily birds in flight. Sound travels approximately 4 times faster in water than in air. In seawater, it moves at about 1,500 meters per second, compared to roughly 340 meters per second in air. This increased speed is due to water's higher density and elasticity, which facilitate quicker transmission of sound waves. Sunlight takes around 8 minutes and 17 seconds to reach Earth. Light travels at a constant speed of approximately 299,792,458 meters per second in a vacuum. Since Earth is about 150 million kilometers from the Sun, this delay reflects the finite speed of light. The speed of light in a vacuum is exactly 299,792,458 meters per second. This constant, denoted by the symbol c, is fundamental to physics and appears in equations such as Einstein's mass-energy equivalence formula, E equals mc squared. Each second, trillions of solar neutrinos pass through the human body. These neutrinos are nearly massless particles produced during nuclear reactions in the Sun's core. Despite their abundance, they rarely interact with matter, allowing them to travel through planets and stars almost undisturbed. Their detection requires highly sensitive underground detectors. Venus is the only planet in the solar system that rotates clockwise, or in what's called retrograde rotation. Venus rotates slowly in the opposite direction of most other planets. Venus takes about 243 Earth days to complete one rotation. For millions of years during the Proterozoic eon, Earth's oceans had a greenish tint. This was caused by high levels of iron and sulfur compounds in the water, along with low oxygen concentrations. The presence of iron reacted with dissolved gases, creating a chemical environment that influenced ocean color before widespread oxygenation began during the Great Oxidation Event around 2.4 billion years ago. Tardigrades, microscopic invertebrates discovered by Johann Goeze in 1773, survive outer space and extreme conditions. They endure temperatures from -328 Fahrenheit to 300 Fahrenheit, radiation 1,000 times human tolerance, and decades-long dehydration via cryptobiosis. Found globally from Antarctica to deep-sea trenches, these water bears have been studied since the 18th century for their resilience. There is a very rare condition called Anton syndrome, in which a person becomes blind but is unaware of it and will even deny it. Their brain will generate false visual images, so they continue to believe that they can see. Butterflies detect chemical stimuli using chemoreceptors located on their tarsi, or feet. This sensory adaptation enables them to assess the presence of sugars or toxins in plant surfaces before feeding. First described in monarch butterflies and other Lepidoptera during the 19th century, this mechanism aids in selective oviposition and nectar feeding, enhancing survival through efficient resource identification and toxin avoidance in flowering environments. Cumulus clouds, formed through atmospheric convection and condensation of water vapor, can weigh over 1 million pounds. A single cloud occupying 1 cubic kilometer may contain over 1 billion condensed water droplets. Meteorologists in the 20th century quantified this mass using droplet density and cloud volume estimates, calculating a weight equivalent to approximately 500 adult elephants, suspended in air by updraft and thermal buoyancy. Raindrops reach terminal velocities of approximately 18 miles per hour due to opposing air resistance. Droplets between 2 and 5 millimeters in diameter descend slower than larger ones, with shape and atmospheric drag limiting speed. This phenomenon was quantified in 1904 by physicist Philip Leonard, who studied droplet dynamics, contributing to the foundational understanding of fluid mechanics and meteorological precipitation behavior. Human blood completes one full circulatory loop in about 60 seconds, driven by the rhythmic contraction of the heart, which beats approximately 100,000 times daily. This circulatory function, measured at 5 liters of blood volume, was first described by William Harvey in 1628. The system consists of arterial, venous, and capillary networks that transport oxygen, nutrients, and waste throughout the body. The human brain produces an average of 20 watts of electrical power, sufficient to illuminate a small LED bulb. This continuous energy output enables electrochemical signaling among approximately 86 billion neurons. The activity was first recorded using electroencephalography, EEG, by Hans Berger in 1924. Neural communication depends on synaptic transmission and action potentials, forming the biological basis of cognition and sensory processing. The human circulatory system contains an estimated 60,000 miles of blood vessels, including arteries, veins, and capillaries. This length is sufficient to encircle the Earth more than twice. The detailed anatomy of this vascular system was first illustrated by Andreas Vesalius in 1543. These vessels distribute blood and oxygen to tissues, remove metabolic waste, and regulate systemic pressure across various organ systems. A global estimate conducted by Yale University in 2015 concluded that Earth hosts approximately 3 trillion trees. This number vastly exceeds the estimated 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, as calculated using Hubble Space Telescope data. The tree count includes boreal, temperate, and tropical forests, reflecting Earth's dominant terrestrial biomass and its central role in carbon cycling and oxygen production. Phytoplankton, photosynthetic microorganisms found in aquatic ecosystems, are responsible for producing between 50 and 85% of Earth's atmospheric oxygen. These unicellular algae utilize chlorophyll to convert carbon dioxide and sunlight into organic matter and oxygen. First studied in the 19th century, phytoplankton form the base of marine food webs and are essential to both biological carbon sequestration and planetary oxygen balance. Snails possess a specialized anatomical structure known as a radula, a chitinous ribbon lined with up to 15,000 microscopic teeth. This organ functions as a scraping tool, allowing species such as Cornu aspersum, also called common garden snail, to feed on algae and plant surfaces. Malacologists have studied radular morphology since the 1800s to understand gastropod feeding adaptations and phylogenetic classification. The Texas horned lizard possesses a rare ocular defense mechanism whereby it forcibly ejects blood from the ocular sinuses. The expelled stream, which can reach up to 1.5 meters, contains compounds that deter predators such as coyotes. This adaptation, documented in herpetological studies since the early 20th century, represents a physiological response combining vascular control and chemical defense. The skin of the hippopotamus secretes a red-colored substance known as hipposudoric acid. First chemically analyzed in the 1990s, this excretion functions as a natural sunscreen and antimicrobial agent. The compound absorbs ultraviolet radiation and inhibits bacterial growth, offering protective benefits in the animal's native freshwater habitats across sub-Saharan Africa. Despite its appearance, it is not blood-based. Happiness can trigger Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, known as broken heart syndrome. Intense joy releases adrenaline, weakening the heart muscle, mimicking heart attack symptoms. Identified in Japan in 1990 by Dr. Hikaru Sato, it often affects women over 50. Humans shed about 35 kilograms of skin over a lifetime, aiding indoor air purification. Dead skin cells, shed at 30,000 to 40,000 per hour, bind dust and pollutants. Research from the University of Copenhagen shows this reduces airborne particles. The stratum corneum, the skin's outer layer, regenerates every 10 to 30 days, supporting this process. The average person holds 13 secrets, impacting mental health. A 2017 study by Columbia University's Dr. Michael Slepian found secrets activate the prefrontal cortex, causing cognitive strain. Often about relationships or finances, secrecy increases stress, potentially leading to anxiety, based on data from over 1,000 participants. Babies are born with around 300 bones, fusing to 206 by adulthood. Ossification, completed by age 25, turns cartilage into bone, per Johns Hopkins University research. This strengthens the skeleton, with flexible infant bones aiding childbirth and skull fontanelles closing by age 2. Motor neurons can extend up to 4.5 feet. Located in the spinal cord, they transmit signals to muscles, with the longest reaching the toes. Neuroscience studies note axons, insulated by myelin, ensure rapid signal transmission. Damage to these neurons, as in amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, impairs movement, per research from the NIH. The stapes, the smallest human bone, measures 2.5 to 3.5 millimeters in the middle ear. It transmits sound vibrations to the inner ear, enabling hearing, per Gray's Anatomy. Part of the ossicular chain with the malleus and incus, it amplifies sound for auditory processing. Razor blades can dissolve in stomach acid within some days. Hydrochloric acid, with a pH of 1.5 to 3.5, corrodes thin steel, per University of Chicago studies. This acidic environment, meant for digestion, breaks down small metal objects, though ingestion risks perforation, requiring urgent medical care. About 1 to 2% of human genes come from bacteria, fungi, and viruses via horizontal gene transfer. Max Planck Institute research shows this ancient process shapes immunity and metabolism. For example, retroviral genes aid placental development, highlighting how microbial DNA, integrated over millennia, influences human biology. So if a virus can sneak into our DNA and stick around forever, surely you can let this channel sneak into your subscriptions. Hit that button before we evolve without you. The iconic Hollywood sign perched on the hills above Los Angeles originally read Hollywoodland when it was erected in 1923. It was constructed as a temporary advertisement for a new real estate development and featured 4,000 light bulbs. Over time, the sign deteriorated, and during a restoration effort in 1949, the city decided to remove the land, leaving just Hollywood to represent the entertainment industry. The superhero film Batgirl, originally planned for release in 2022, became the most expensive movie ever abandoned by a major studio. Warner Brothers had invested over $90 million into the project, reaching the post-production stage with principal photography already completed. Despite that, the studio chose to cancel its release entirely, citing strategic shifts and tax-related considerations rather than issues with the film's quality. Between 1912 and 1948, the Olympic Games awarded medals for architecture, painting, music, sculpture, and literature. Submissions had to be inspired by sport because nothing says peak physical endurance like competitive poetry. The events were discontinued when officials realized that most participants were professionals, violating the Olympic amateurism rule. The Groom of the Stool was an official royal appointment in Tudor England, most prominently under King Henry VIII. The role entailed assisting the monarch during defecation and maintaining related records. Established in the early 16th century, the office provided direct access to the king and considerable political leverage. Notably, Sir William Compton and others were knighted while serving in this role, underscoring its strategic importance at court. Between the 1940s and the 1970s, Yale University conducted a posture study in which incoming freshmen were photographed nude to evaluate spinal alignment and detect scoliosis. The project was part of a broader academic initiative led by Dr. William Herbert Sheldon and others, also carried out at Harvard and other Ivy League institutions. The medical justification was later questioned, as the program lacked clear consent protocols and produced limited usable data. Roman emperors such as Nero and Augustus reportedly practiced mithridatism, the gradual ingestion of sublethal doses of poison to build immunity. The method was named after Mithridates VI of Pontus, who used it to resist assassination attempts in the 1st century BCE. Ancient texts, including those by Pliny the Elder, reference the practice, though its efficacy remains debated. It presented complications during attempted suicides, when immunity delayed or prevented death by poison. Following the death of poet Percy Bysshe Shelley in 1822, his heart was removed after cremation and returned to his widow, Mary Shelley. The organ did not fully incinerate, likely due to calcification from tuberculosis. Historical accounts indicate she wrapped it in cloth and stored it in her writing desk. The heart was eventually interred with the couple's son in St. Peter's Church, Bournemouth, in 1889. Thomas Edison proposed hello as the standard telephone greeting in 1877 while testing his newly developed carbon microphone. Alexander Graham Bell had preferred the term ahoy, derived from nautical signaling. Edison's suggestion was published in a letter to the president of the Central District and Printing Telegraph Company. The greeting gained widespread adoption by the late 19th century, becoming the default opening for telephone communication globally. In 1843, Ada Lovelace published annotations on Charles Babbage's analytical engine, which included an algorithm designed to compute Bernoulli numbers. Though the machine was never completed, her work is regarded as the first published computer program. The notes, signed AAL, outlined loop structures and conditional logic, predating modern software theory by over a century. Lovelace's algorithm remains a foundational reference in the history of computing. In 1898, author Morgan Robertson published Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan, a novella describing the sinking of an unsinkable ocean liner after colliding with an iceberg. 14 years later, in 1912, the RMS Titanic met a similar fate. Both ships were described as lacking sufficient lifeboats and struck ice in April. While not predictive, the parallel details have drawn scholarly interest in probabilistic narrative coincidence. The first traffic light was installed in December 1868 outside the British Houses of Parliament. Designed by railway engineer J.P. Knight, the manually operated signal resembled a semaphore and was powered by gas. Less than a month after installation, a gas leak caused an explosion, injuring the police officer operating it. The system was discontinued, and traffic signal development paused until electric versions emerged in the 20th century. The Phoenicians developed Tyrian purple dye using the mucus of murex sea snails, requiring approximately 10,000 specimens to yield 1 gram of pigment. This process, dating to at least 1500 BCE, involved fermenting crushed mollusks under controlled conditions. The dye's durability and vibrant hue made it a symbol of elite status, particularly in Roman and Byzantine empires, where it was often reserved for imperial garments. Scientific observations suggest that snakes are highly sensitive to ground vibrations and low-frequency seismic waves, which they detect through their bodies and jawbones. In some cases, unusual snake behavior, such as increased activity or surfacing, has been reported before earthquakes, particularly in China and Japan. However, there is no scientific consensus that snakes can reliably detect seismic activity from great distances or predict earthquakes days in advance. Most evidence remains anecdotal, and further research is needed to confirm their potential as natural early warning indicators. Roy Cleveland Sullivan, a U.S. park ranger in Shenandoah National Park, Virginia, was struck by lightning on 7 separate occasions between 1942 and 1977. Each incident was documented, with Sullivan surviving all and earning a Guinness World Record for most lightning strikes survived by one individual. Meteorologists estimate the odds of this occurring at approximately 1 in 10 trillion, though atmospheric conditions in mountainous regions increase exposure. In Halberstadt, Germany, an organ performance of John Cage's As Slow as Possible began in 2001 and is scheduled to end in the year 2640. The piece includes century-long pauses and chord changes every few years. Earthen windows were installed to hear the music. If anyone remembers, it's still playing. Octopuses engage in extensive RNA editing, particularly in neural tissues, allowing them to modify protein production without altering their underlying DNA. This molecular mechanism, observed in multiple cephalopod species, enhances adaptability in variable environments, such as cold ocean waters. Unlike most animals, which rarely employ post-transcriptional editing on this scale, octopuses exhibit consistent, targeted recoding, especially in genes related to neural function and ion transport. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake in Japan, with a magnitude of 9.1, caused a redistribution of Earth's mass, shortening the planet's rotation period by approximately 1.8 microseconds. The quake resulted in over 15,000 confirmed deaths and triggered a tsunami and nuclear accident at the Fukushima Daiichi plant. Data from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory confirmed the shift using satellite geodesy and seismological models. Lake Superior, the largest of North America's Great Lakes, spans a surface area of roughly 82,000 square kilometers. That makes it larger than the entire land area of Scotland, which covers about 78,000 square kilometers. Uranus has an axial tilt of about 98 degrees, resulting in a near-horizontal rotation as it orbits the Sun. These anomalies likely stem from high-impact collisions during the early formation of the solar system, as suggested by planetary modeling studies conducted in the late 20th century. Killer whales exhibit unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, during which one cerebral hemisphere remains active while the other enters a rest state. They maintain mobility and breathing by swimming slowly in synchronized formations, surfacing for air at regular intervals. This sleep pattern has been documented in both wild and captive populations and is also observed in dolphins and certain bird species. The modern chainsaw was first developed in the late 18th century for surgical purposes. Scottish doctors John Aitken and James Jeffrey designed the device to perform symphysiotomies, a procedure that involved cutting through the pelvic bone to facilitate childbirth in cases of obstructed labor. The original design featured a hand-cranked chain with serrated teeth, preceding its adaptation into forestry and industrial applications. In the year 897, Pope Stephen VI convened the Cadaver Synod in Rome, where the exhumed body of Pope Formosus was placed on trial. The corpse was dressed in papal vestments, seated in a court, and charged with perjury and violating canon law. After conviction, the body was stripped of its garments and thrown into the Tiber River. This event remains a documented instance of ecclesiastical posthumous prosecution. The heart of a blue whale weighs approximately 400 kilograms and can reach a size comparable to a small automobile. Acoustic studies conducted by marine biologists have recorded the heartbeat from distances exceeding 3 kilometers owing to its low-frequency propagation. This cardiovascular scale supports circulation across the largest known animal species, with adults reaching lengths of over 25 meters. In Japan, cube-shaped watermelons have been cultivated since the late 20th century using rigid, transparent molds. The method was developed to facilitate efficient storage and display in retail settings. These melons are typically harvested before reaching full maturity, rendering them inedible. Despite limited practical use, they remain popular as novelty items and are frequently sold at premium prices in domestic and export markets. Butterflies, classified under the order Lepidoptera, possess compound eyes capable of perceiving ultraviolet light. This sensory capacity enables detection of patterns used in pollination and mating that are invisible to the human eye. Species such as the cabbage white and monarch butterflies rely on these UV patterns for flower identification and intraspecies signaling, a phenomenon studied extensively since the mid-20th century. The scent released by freshly cut grass is caused by green leaf volatiles, airborne compounds including aldehydes, alcohols, and esters. These molecules are emitted from injured plant tissues as a chemical defense mechanism. Research in plant physiology shows they serve multiple functions, attracting predatory insects to herbivores, signaling nearby plants to enhance defenses, and initiating internal responses such as tissue repair. The word robot originated from the 1920 play RUR by Czech author Karel Čapek. The term is derived from the Slavic root robota, meaning forced labor or drudgery. In the play, artificial humanoid workers are created to serve humans, eventually rebelling. The word entered the global lexicon as a general term for mechanical automation and synthetic labor. Octopuses, members of the class Cephalopoda, possess chemoreceptors on their arms, enabling chemical sensing through physical contact. More than 2/3 of their neurons are distributed within the arms, rather than centralized in the brain. This decentralized nervous system allows localized decision-making and complex motor coordination, as demonstrated in multiple behavioral studies conducted since the mid-20th century. Sloths, classified under the suborder Folivora, are capable of holding their breath for up to 40 minutes. This is achieved through a significant reduction in heart rate, often dropping by over 30 beats per minute while submerged. In contrast, dolphins typically surface for air every 10 to 15 minutes. The sloth's adaptation is linked to its low metabolic rate and semi-aquatic behavior in tropical rainforests. A parasitic fungus from the genus Ophiocordyceps infects carpenter ants, manipulates their motor functions, and compels them to ascend vegetation. After anchoring themselves to a leaf or branch, the fungus kills the host and emerges from the head capsule to release spores. During a rabbit hunt organized by Napoleon Bonaparte, a large group of domesticated rabbits intended for release overwhelmed the event by charging at the participants. According to several accounts, the animals were not properly dispersed, leading to an uncontrolled and unexpected confrontation. Seismic activity on the moon, referred to as moonquakes, has been recorded by seismometers installed during the Apollo missions. Some of these quakes reached magnitudes sufficient to fracture bedrock, with events lasting up to 10 minutes due to the moon's dry, rigid crust. Trees form symbiotic relationships with mycorrhizal fungi, creating underground networks often termed the Wood Wide Web. This system facilitates the transfer of nutrients, water, and chemical signals between individual plants, contributing to forest ecosystem resilience and communication. During the Second World War, the British Special Operations Executive developed an unconventional explosive device by filling rat carcasses with plastic explosives. The objective was to place these near enemy boilers, where they would detonate upon incineration. However, the operation was discovered before deployment. Sea otters exhibit a behavioral adaptation in which they hold forepaws while resting on the water's surface. This behavior prevents them from drifting apart due to tidal movement and maintains group cohesion during sleep. The human liver possesses a remarkable regenerative capacity. Clinical studies indicate that as little as 25% of a healthy liver can regenerate to full functional size, a capability attributed to the proliferation of hepatocytes and supportive stromal cells. DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, is a highly compact data storage medium. Research has demonstrated that 1 gram of DNA can theoretically encode over 200 petabytes of digital information due to its molecular structure, enabling dense, stable, and long-term storage of binary sequences. The name M&M's originates from the surnames of its founders, Forrest Mars and Bruce Murray. The candy was first produced in 1941 through a partnership between Mars, Inc. and Murray, son of the Hershey executive. The collaboration ensured chocolate supply during wartime rationing. Each candy's hard shell allowed it to resist melting in high temperatures, a functional design for military use during World War II. Goldfish possess the cognitive ability to distinguish between human faces. A 2016 study by the University of Oxford and the University of Queensland demonstrated that goldfish could correctly identify individual human images with over 80% accuracy after repeated exposure. These fish are also capable of associative learning, enabling them to perform simple tricks through reward-based training protocols involving repetition and stimulus recognition. In ancient China, moldy soybean curds were used to treat skin infections and wounds. This practice dates back over 1,000 years and utilized fermented glycine max, which naturally produced antibiotic compounds. Though not chemically identical to penicillin, the technique shares similarities with the concept of harnessing mold to inhibit bacterial growth. It predated Alexander Fleming's discovery of penicillin by centuries, reflecting early empirical use of microbial agents in medicine. According to population estimates, there are more plastic flamingos than real ones in the world. The artificial model, originally designed by Don Featherstone in 1957, has become a widely manufactured lawn ornament. In contrast, global wild flamingo populations, across species like Phoenicopterus roseus and Phoenicopsis ruber, total under 5 million. Mass production of the synthetic version has surpassed the biological count, creating a notable reversal in real-to-fake species presence. A 2005 study published in the Journal of Experimental Biology found that honeybees can recognize and differentiate human faces. Researchers trained bees to associate facial images with rewards and documented that the insects processed faces using a configural mechanism similar to human facial recognition software. Tomatoes were historically classified as poisonous in parts of 18th century Europe due to their inclusion in the Solanaceae family, which also contains toxic plants such as deadly nightshade. The fruit, often called poison apples, was suspected of causing illness when consumed from pewter plates, where tomato acidity leached lead. The misconception persisted until widespread culinary adoption in the 19th century confirmed their edibility and agricultural value. According to Guinness World Records, the longest wedding veil measured over 23,000 feet, specifically 23,993 feet and 6 inches. This veil, worn by Maria Paraskeva in Cyprus in 2018, was nearly 400 times her height. The veil's length required significant logistical coordination and surpassed the previous record by several kilometers, setting a benchmark in textile length for ceremonial garments. A widely discussed theory in planetary science proposes that Earth once had 2 moons. This hypothesis, known as the double moon theory, suggests that a smaller satellite collided with the larger moon approximately 4 billion years ago. The impact is believed to have created the lunar highlands, known today as the moon's far side. The model remains hypothetical, but is supported by simulations and geochemical analysis of lunar rock asymmetry. The blobfish maintains structural integrity in deep-sea environments due to extreme external pressure. At depths exceeding 600 meters, its gelatinous body is neutrally buoyant without the need for a swim bladder. When removed from that pressure, its tissues deform, resulting in a collapsed, amorphous appearance. The species' external form is therefore a function of bathyal zone adaptation rather than its actual biological anatomy. Ray Tomlinson sent the first electronic mail in 1971 between 2 ARPANET-connected machines. He used the @ symbol to separate the username from the host, creating the standard email format still in use today. The content of the test message was nonsensical, something like QWERTYUIOP, and served only to verify functionality. Tomlinson's work marked the beginning of digital interpersonal communication. Following the 1994 Northridge earthquake in Los Angeles, emergency services received numerous reports of an unusual silver cloud seen in the night sky. This phenomenon was later identified as the Milky Way galaxy. Due to extensive urban light pollution, many residents had never seen it before. The temporary blackout allowed for rare visibility of celestial objects, highlighting the extent of artificial sky glow in metropolitan areas. The term D-Day does not refer to a specific word, but serves as a placeholder in military planning to denote the launch date of an operation. Used in Allied documentation as early as World War I, it gained prominence with the Normandy landings on June 6, 1944. In military scheduling, D marks the day, while preceding or following days are labeled as D- or D+. Birds do not urinate in the conventional mammalian sense. Instead, they excrete nitrogenous waste as uric acid, which is relatively insoluble and expelled as a white paste. This compound is combined with fecal matter and expelled through the cloaca. The adaptation conserves water, which is critical for flight-capable species, and results in the characteristic white droppings commonly seen on surfaces beneath bird perches. In the Middle Ages, it was widely believed that touching a toad would cause warts. This misconception likely arose from the presence of wart-like glands on the toad's skin, particularly the parotoid glands. Despite lacking scientific basis, the belief persisted for centuries and remains part of modern folklore. Warts are caused by the human papillomavirus and are not transmitted through amphibian contact. Certain species of starfish, such as Lynchia multifora, exhibit complete regenerative capabilities. If a single arm contains part of the central disc, it can regenerate into a full organism. This form of asexual reproduction, known as fissiparity, has been documented in both wild and laboratory conditions, particularly in tropical marine environments. The average human, based on a daily walking estimate of 8,000 steps and a lifespan of approximately 80 years, will walk a total of around 184,000 kilometers. This distance is roughly equivalent to circumnavigating Earth 5 times along the equator, which measures about 40,075 kilometers. Volatile aromatic compounds in vanilla, particularly vanillin, have been shown to activate the limbic system in the brain. Functional MRI studies indicate a neurological response associated with mood and memory regulation. This physiological effect is attributed to the olfactory pathway's direct access to the amygdala and hippocampus, bypassing the thalamus. Records from ancient Rome indicate the use of crushed mouse brains in dental care. This material was mixed with other substances to create early toothpaste formulations. The practice was documented in medical texts attributed to Roman physicians such as Scribonius Largus during the 1st century, reflecting limited knowledge of hygiene and microbial disease. The pistol shrimp generates a high-velocity snap by closing its claw, creating a cavitation bubble that reaches temperatures exceeding 10,000 Kelvin. This temperature is comparable to the surface of the sun. The phenomenon produces a shock wave strong enough to stun or kill nearby prey and has been studied for its potential in underwater acoustics. The English word rhythms is considered the longest common word without any of the 5 traditional vowels A, E, I, O, U. It consists entirely of consonants and the letter Y, which functions as a vowel in this context. The term is used in both musical and biological contexts and contains 7 letters. Saturn's moon Titan, first visited by the Huygens probe in 2005, has surface lakes composed primarily of liquid methane and ethane. These hydrocarbon reservoirs exist due to Titan's surface temperatures, which average approximately 94 Kelvin. The lakes are concentrated near the moon's polar regions and are part of a methane-based hydrological cycle. The Anglo-Zanzibar War occurred on August 27, 1896. Hostilities began at 9 in the morning and ended at 9:38, making it the shortest recorded war in history. The British forces bombarded the Sultan's palace, resulting in over 500 casualties on the Zanzibari side. British losses were limited to 1 wounded sailor. The sound effect used for Darth Vader's breathing in the Star Wars films was created using a scuba regulator. Sound designer Ben Burt recorded the noise by placing a microphone inside a diving mask and connecting it to a rebreather. The effect debuted in the original film, released in 1977. Sharks possess a cartilaginous skeleton composed entirely of connective tissue rather than bone. This anatomical structure is lighter and more flexible than osseous material, enabling buoyancy and agility. Species across the subclass Elasmobranchi, including great white and hammerhead sharks, demonstrate this adaptation, which distinguishes them from bony fish in the class Osteichthyes. In Japan, the Naki Sumo Festival involves sumo wrestlers holding infants and encouraging them to cry. The event is based on the traditional belief that a crying child is healthy and will be protected from evil spirits. The practice is centuries old and continues to be observed annually at temples such as the Sensoji Temple in Tokyo. Apples float in water due to internal air pockets, which make up approximately 25% of the fruit's volume. This characteristic results in a lower average density than water, causing buoyancy. The phenomenon is commonly observed during recreational activities such as apple bobbing. The original oranges, particularly the Southeast Asian variety known as Citrus reticulata, were green in color. These early cultivars maintained their chlorophyll pigmentation in warmer climates. The orange hue commonly associated with the fruit emerged through hybridization and exposure to cooler temperatures, which reduce chlorophyll levels and reveal carotenoid pigments. The Great Fire of London began on September 2, 1666, in a bakery on Pudding Lane. The fire lasted 4 days, destroying over 13,000 buildings, including St. Paul's Cathedral. Despite the extensive structural damage, only 6 deaths were officially recorded, although the actual number may have been higher due to undocumented casualties. On August 15, 1977, a radio signal later termed the "Wow signal" was detected by Dr. Jerry R. Eman using Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope. The signal lasted 72 seconds and originated from the constellation Sagittarius. It has never been observed again and remains unexplained despite multiple subsequent search efforts. The term spaghettification refers to the theoretical process that occurs near a black hole's event horizon where tidal forces stretch matter into elongated shapes. This occurs due to the gravitational gradient between the object's near and far sides. The concept is derived from general relativity and has been described in academic works on black hole physics. Certain species of frogs, such as the wood frog, can survive sub-zero temperatures by entering a state of suspended animation. During winter, their bodies freeze, and metabolic activity ceases. They thaw in spring and resume normal function. This adaptation is facilitated by high concentrations of glucose and urea acting as cryoprotectants. Fred Bohr, the food scientist who developed the iconic Pringles can in the 1960s, requested that a portion of his ashes be buried in one after his death in 2008. His family honored the request, placing the can in the burial plot along with a traditional urn. The can was an original red Pringles container. The human stomach regenerates its epithelial lining approximately every 3 to 5 days. This rapid cellular turnover prevents the stomach from digesting itself, as gastric acid contains hydrochloric acid with a pH as low as 1.5. The mucosal barrier, composed of bicarbonate-rich mucus and tight junctions between epithelial cells, plays a critical role in maintaining the integrity of the stomach wall under constant chemical exposure. The original version of Monopoly, designed by Lizzie Magie in 1903, was called the Landlord's Game. It aimed to demonstrate the negative aspects of wealth concentration and monopolistic practices. The game contrasted two rule sets, one promoting cooperation and the other rewarding monopolies. Charles Darrow later commercialized a modified version through Parker Brothers in 1935, removing the original socio-economic critique. The number of possible legal chess positions is estimated to exceed 10 to the power of 120, a figure known as the Shannon number. By contrast, estimates place the number of atoms in the observable universe at roughly 10 to the power of 80. This combinatorial complexity arises from the game's 20 initial possible first moves and exponential variation with each subsequent turn. In 2015, Dr. J. Calvin Coffey and colleagues at the University of Limerick reclassified the mesentery as a continuous organ in the human digestive system. Previously considered fragmented structures, mesenteric folds were shown to form an uninterrupted tissue connecting the intestines to the abdominal wall. This finding, based on microscopic and imaging data, prompted updates to medical textbooks and anatomical classification systems. The term French fries refers to the culinary technique of Frenching, or cutting food into thin strips. The origin of the fried potato dish is commonly attributed to Belgium, where it was documented as early as the late 17th century. American soldiers during World War I popularized the term French fries after encountering the food in French-speaking regions of Belgium. Onions contain sulfur-containing compounds, primarily syn-propaneths oxide. When the onion's cell walls are disrupted, these molecules are released and converted by the enzyme alliinase into a volatile gas. Upon reaching the eyes, the gas reacts with water to form mild sulfuric acid, which irritates the lacrimal glands and triggers tear production as a defensive response. In ancient Egypt, written records and depictions suggest that honey was applied to the skin of servants to attract flies. This method functioned as a human decoy system to protect high-status individuals, including pharaohs, from insect irritation. Honey's high sugar content and viscosity made it an effective fly attractant in the arid climate of the Nile Valley. When a person experiences facial blushing due to vasodilation triggered by emotional stimuli, the same autonomic response extends to the stomach's inner lining. Blood vessels in the gastric mucosa also dilate, causing a reddening effect. This physiological response is controlled by the sympathetic nervous system and is part of the broader fight-or-flight mechanism. Slime molds, such as Physarum polycephalum, exhibit decentralized problem-solving abilities. In controlled experiments, they have successfully navigated mazes and replicated efficient networks, such as Japan's rail system. Their method relies on chemotactic movement and spatial memory through protoplasmic streaming, enabling them to optimize paths without a central nervous system, outperforming some computational algorithms in route efficiency. A Babylonian tablet from around 1500 BCE, housed in the British Museum, contains the oldest known example of a "your mother" insult. Written in Akkadian cuneiform, the line is partially damaged, but references humor involving a maternal subject. It demonstrates that structured, insult-based humor has existed for over 35 centuries in recorded human language. In Iceland, the tradition known as Jólabókaflóð, or Christmas Book Flood, involves giving books as gifts on December 24th. This cultural practice began during World War II, when paper was one of the few imports not rationed. The Icelandic publishing industry continues to release most of its annual book output in November and December to align with this national reading custom. The word clue originates from the Middle English term clue, meaning a ball of thread. Its modern figurative meaning traces back to the Greek myth of Theseus, who used a thread to navigate the labyrinth and escape after slaying the Minotaur. Over time, clue evolved into clue, signifying something that guides or solves a problem. The human body contains approximately 37 trillion cells, including red blood cells, epithelial cells, and neurons. In parallel, it hosts an estimated 39 trillion microbial organisms, mainly bacteria, within the gut microbiome. These microbial cells outnumber human cells and play essential roles in digestion, immunity, and metabolic regulation, particularly through the production of enzymes and short-chain fatty acids. Elephants detect seismic vibrations through mechanoreceptors located in their feet and trunk. These low-frequency ground signals, often generated by distant movements or vocalizations, are transmitted through the earth and interpreted by the animal's somatosensory system. Studies suggest elephants can detect vibrations from several kilometers away, aiding in navigation and herd communication. The Earth's inner core, composed primarily of iron and nickel, reaches temperatures estimated at approximately 6,000 degrees Celsius. This thermal estimate is based on experimental data from high-pressure studies and seismological models. Despite extreme heat, the inner core remains solid due to immense pressure exceeding 3 million atmospheres at the planet's center. Peanuts are classified botanically as legumes, not true nuts. They belong to the Fabaceae family and develop underground through geocarpy. In contrast, tree nuts like almonds or walnuts form from ovary walls of flowering plants. Peanuts share characteristics with other legumes, such as lentils and beans, including nitrogen-fixing root nodules. The heart of a hummingbird can beat more than 1,200 times per minute during flight. This exceptionally high rate supports the bird's intense metabolic demands while hovering or feeding. Species such as the ruby-throated hummingbird maintain elevated oxygen delivery through rapid circulation and specialized respiratory efficiency, allowing sustained wing movement at rates of over 50 beats per second in mid-air. Human bodies emit a faint glow, known as bioluminescence, though it is roughly 1,000 times too dim to be seen by the naked eye. This light results from chemical reactions involving free radicals and biomolecules such as lipids. In 2009, Japanese researchers used ultra-sensitive cameras to photograph this phenomenon, confirming that emission levels vary slightly over a 24-hour cycle and peak in the late afternoon. So if even tiny light emissions know how to show up on schedule, make sure you show up on my subscriber list. Hit that button before your glow fades away. Newborn humans typically do not produce visible tears for the first few weeks after birth. Although their lacrimal glands are present, they are not fully developed and do not produce the volume of liquid needed for tear overflow. Reflex tearing, which responds to irritation or emotion, usually begins between 2 to 3 weeks after birth, depending on individual variation and environmental conditions. While identical twins share identical DNA, their fingerprints are never exactly the same. The ridge patterns develop in utero through a combination of genetic and environmental factors, including pressure, blood flow, and amniotic movement. This means that even with shared genetic code, the fingerprints of monozygotic twins display small but measurable differences under forensic analysis. Estimates suggest that the average adult spends roughly 6 months of their life waiting at red traffic lights. This projection is based on cumulative daily commuting times in urban environments and assumes standard light cycles. While it varies by location and driving habits, the figure offers a useful approximation of how modern transportation infrastructure impacts time use. Because of the way the Gregorian calendar handles leap years, the weekday on which your birthday falls usually repeats every 6 years, but the interval can sometimes be 5, 7, or 11 years, depending on your birth date and the leap year pattern. This happens because leap years add an extra day every 4 years, causing the weekday of your birthday to shift in a predictable cycle over time. Well, maybe this goes over your head. It definitely did for me. Humming while holding the nose is physically impossible due to the mechanics of airflow. Humming requires continuous air resonance in the nasal passages, and pinching the nose closes off that space. Without a nasal outlet, the pressure buildup halts vibration, preventing sound generation. This is a simple example of how human vocalization depends on unobstructed anatomical structures. The word avocado originates from the Nahuatl term ahuacatl, which translates to testicle. The name likely refers to the fruit's shape and was adopted into Spanish during the colonial period. The Aztecs associated the fruit with fertility, and it was cultivated as early as 5000 BCE in regions that now include southern Mexico and Guatemala. Studies have shown that the scent of chocolate can increase theta brainwave activity, which is associated with states of relaxation and reduced stress. These effects have been observed using electroencephalography, EEG, a method that records electrical activity in the brain. The response may be linked to both olfactory stimulation and emotional associations formed through repeated exposure. The longest documented flight of a chicken lasted approximately 13 seconds and covered a distance of over 90 meters. This record, though limited compared to most bird species, highlights the capacity for short bursts of powered flight in certain breeds. Most domesticated chickens are selectively bred for meat or egg production, which limits their aerodynamic abilities. Young elephants often suck their trunks for comfort, a behavior similar to human infants sucking their thumbs. This action helps soothe them and may assist in sensory development. Trunk sucking has been observed in both wild and captive populations and generally decreases as the calf matures and gains better trunk control for feeding and interaction. As of recent estimates, there are more public libraries than McDonald's restaurants in the United States. Data from the American Library Association indicates over 16,000 public library locations compared to roughly 13,000 fast food outlets. Libraries serve as community resources, offering free access to books, internet, and educational programs across urban and rural areas. The human nose is capable of detecting over 1 trillion different scents, based on a 2014 study published in Science. This estimate significantly exceeds earlier beliefs that the nose could detect around 10,000 odors. The olfactory system uses roughly 400 active receptor types, each interacting with multiple odor molecules through complex combinatorial coding. Armillaria ostoyi, a species of honey fungus located in Oregon's Malheur National Forest, is currently considered the largest living organism by area. The underground mycelial network spans nearly 4 square miles and is genetically identical throughout. Estimated to be thousands of years old, this fungus lives symbiotically with trees, sometimes contributing to root rot in forest ecosystems. Although the human brain makes up only about 2% of total body mass, it consumes roughly 20% of the body's energy. This high energy demand supports continuous electrical activity, neurotransmitter synthesis, and metabolic functions. The majority of this energy is used for signaling between neurons, especially in regions involved in decision-making, memory, and perception. On Saturn's moon Enceladus, high-velocity geysers eject water vapor and ice particles from a subterranean ocean through surface fractures near the South Pole. First observed by the Cassini spacecraft in 2005, these plumes contain organic compounds and molecular hydrogen. NASA has since listed Enceladus as a candidate for extraterrestrial microbial life, pending, of course, a very long-distance confirmation. The Great Wall of China is not, in fact, a single continuous structure. It consists of multiple segments built by various dynasties between the 7th century BCE and the 17th century CE. Spanning over 21,000 kilometers, much of the wall now exists in fragments, making it perhaps the least unified structure in history. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station orbit Earth every 92 minutes, resulting in roughly 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets per 24-hour terrestrial day. The phenomenon is caused by orbital velocity, not poor scheduling. Window blinds are provided. Some leafcutter ants, such as those from the genus Atta, cultivate fungal gardens underground and apply naturally derived antimicrobial secretions to prevent contamination. The practice predates human agriculture by tens of millions of years and includes compartmentalized waste zones. The ants have not yet developed crop rotation. Vikings are believed to have used birefringent crystals known as sunstones to locate the sun's position under overcast skies. These calcite or cordierite stones functioned by polarizing light, serving as a navigational aid in the absence of actual sunlight. This technique, discovered centuries before GPS, did not require satellites, only an appropriately cloudy sky. Elephants have passed the mirror self-recognition test, indicating a level of cognitive self-awareness. In one study, elephants touched visible markings on their own bodies while looking in a mirror. The test, originally developed for primates, has so far failed to interest cats. A cat's purr generates vibrations between 20 and 140 Hz, a frequency range associated with bone and soft tissue regeneration in mammals. Some researchers have speculated that this acoustic feature may have therapeutic applications for humans, assuming the patient is willing to be purred on. The mantis shrimp employs a spring-loaded appendage to deliver strikes reaching speeds of 80 kilometers per hour. The impact generates cavitation bubbles that momentarily produce temperatures hotter than the sun's surface. It also sees ultraviolet and polarized light. The shrimp, not the sun. Tomatoes contain approximately 31,000 genes, exceeding the human genome by roughly 11,000. This includes sequences responsible for traits like fruit shape, color, and flavor. The fruit does not appear to use its surplus for moral introspection. A typical cumulus cloud contains about 500,000 kilograms of water, equivalent to roughly 800,000 standard bathtubs. Fortunately, it does not fall all at once. Atmospheric physics remains grateful. Sea otters often store a preferred rock in a skin fold beneath their forearms and reuse it to break open shellfish. The tool is carried, hidden, and regularly used, placing it in a small but committed category of personal belongings among marine mammals. The ancient city of Troy, long dismissed as myth, was excavated in the 1870s by Heinrich Schliemann in what is now northwestern Turkey. Layered ruins revealed a history consistent with Homeric descriptions, suggesting that the line between epic poetry and archaeology may be thinner than previously assumed. Zebras have black skin and grow white stripes due to pigment-inhibiting mechanisms in specific hair follicles. Embryological studies confirm the base coat is black, meaning the stripes are technically an absence of color, rendering the zebra the world's most elaborately unpainted horse. The Mariana Trench, located in the western Pacific Ocean, contains the deepest known natural point in Earth's seabed, known as the Challenger Deep. This point reaches an approximate depth of 10,984 meters, based on measurements recorded by the DSV limiting factor in 2019. By comparison, Mount Everest has a height of 8,848 meters, making the trench significantly deeper than the mountain is tall. In 2022, researchers at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, led by Dr. Jacob Hanna, developed synthetic mouse embryos using only pluripotent stem cells. The process excluded the use of fertilized eggs, sperm cells, or a uterus. The engineered embryos exhibited early organ development, including a neural tube and beating heart, and survived up to 8.5 days in an artificial womb, marking a significant advancement in synthetic embryology. During the medieval period in Europe, bestiaries, illustrated compendiums of animals, propagated the myth that beavers would sever and discard their testicles to escape hunters. This belief, first recorded in classical antiquity, was based on the erroneous notion that beaver castoreum glands, located near the tail, were testicles and highly sought for medicinal use. No empirical evidence supports the behavior. Olfactory studies indicate that the aroma of cinnamon enhances cognitive performance. Controlled trials have shown improvements in working memory, attention, and visual motor response speed. These effects are attributed to the stimulation of brain regions, such as the hippocampus and frontal cortex, as observed in neuroimaging and electrophysiological assessments. Some observational studies have suggested that certain bat species may show directional preferences when exiting their roosts, but there is no consistent or universal pattern, such as always turning left, across all bat species. The reasons for any observed directional bias remain unclear and may involve factors like roost structure, environmental cues, or species-specific behaviors. More controlled experimental research is needed to determine whether such preferences are widespread or significant within the order Chiroptera. In microgravity environments, such as those aboard the International Space Station, combustion behaves differently due to the absence of buoyancy-driven convection. Flames assume spherical shapes because heated gases do not rise, and the flame envelope is sustained by the slow diffusion of oxygen. This phenomenon has been documented in NASA's flame extinguishment experiment and informs spacecraft fire safety protocols. Before the invention of rubber-based erasers in the late 18th century, individuals commonly used pieces of crustless bread as an abrasive to remove graphite marks from paper. The bread was compressed and dried to increase firmness. Edward Nairn is credited with commercializing the rubber eraser in 1770 after discovering its efficacy as a substitute for bread. Toilet paper is believed to have been first produced in China during the late 9th century. Historical records from around 875 AD mention the use of paper specifically for hygiene purposes in the Tang dynasty. While other cultures used materials like wool, leaves, or water, China was the earliest known civilization to manufacture paper products intended solely for personal sanitation. The precise burial site of Genghis Khan remains undetermined. Historical sources from the 13th century describe secretive burial procedures, reportedly involving the execution of laborers to maintain confidentiality. Archaeological surveys, including satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar, have yet to confirm the tomb's location. The legend persists largely through oral traditions and unverified historical texts. The average lightning bolt reaches temperatures of approximately 30,000 Kelvin. This thermal energy exceeds the estimated surface temperature of the Sun, which is around 5,778 Kelvin. The extreme heat results from rapid ionization of air molecules during the discharge, producing a plasma channel visible as a lightning flash. Experimental studies have demonstrated that pigeons possess advanced visual discrimination capabilities. In controlled settings, pigeons have successfully identified all 26 letters of the English alphabet and distinguished between human faces. These findings indicate robust pattern recognition and memory faculties, placing pigeons among the more cognitively complex avian species. Gallium, a post-transition metal with atomic number 31, has a melting point of 29.76 Celsius, which is below average human body temperature. When held in the hand, gallium transitions from solid to liquid phase due to thermal conductivity. This property is used in low melting point alloys and semiconductor applications. Constructed from copper sheets approximately 2.4 millimeters thick, the Statue of Liberty initially exhibited the metal's characteristic reddish-brown color following its completion in 1886. Over time, exposure to air and moisture induced oxidation and the formation of a green patina composed primarily of copper carbonate. This layer provides protection against further corrosion. It would take nearly 2 million mosquito bites to drain 2 liters of blood from a human body. Since a single mosquito removes only about 5 microliters of blood per bite, reaching that dangerous volume would require a massive number of bites. 2 liters is considered a critical loss and can cause severe medical emergencies, including hypovolemic shock. Twister was among the first films ever released on DVD, marking a shift in home entertainment formats, when it debuted in 1996. The launch helped establish DVD as a mainstream distribution medium, offering improved video and audio quality over VHS tapes. This milestone set the stage for the widespread transition to digital video media in the early 2000s. Roughly 205,000 metric tons of gold have been mined throughout all of recorded history. If all of it were melted down and shaped into a solid cube, that cube would measure approximately 22 meters along each edge. The Internal Revenue Service in the United States does not typically process single checks exceeding $100 million. If someone owes more than that, they must split the amount into multiple checks or use an electronic payment system such as wire transfer. This policy exists to reduce processing issues and enhance transaction security at such high payment levels. Fox tossing was a real competitive activity in 17th and 18th century Europe, especially in regions like Saxony. Participants used slings to hurl live foxes into the air for both distance and height, often during aristocratic festivals. Injuries and fatalities among the animals were common, but the practice was socially accepted at the time, despite its cruelty by modern standards. The durian fruit, grown in Southeast Asian countries such as Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, is infamous for its strong and often unpleasant odor. Its smell has been likened to sewage, spoiled onions, or gym socks, leading to bans in hotels and public transport. Despite this, durian remains a culturally significant and highly prized fruit in local cuisines. That's it for this one. No clickbait, no distractions, just real facts you won't hear in most places. If even one of them made you pause or think differently, this video did its job. More are on the way. Smarter, sharper, and always backed by reality. Until then, thanks for watching, and stay curious.